Previously on
Mansplainer.
I really, really wish that Storm actually existed in real life because of climate change. The fossil fuel industry, they don't want to be regulated. They don't want to lose market share to renewable energy sources.
I sense a terrible wound, even a dying of the planet.
Or we could make the fossil fuel industry go extinct. And they know it. That's why they spend so much money on propaganda.
The whole global warming scam.
On buying politicians.
Global warming alarmists.
We approved the Keystone XL pipeline.
ExxonMobil needs to be able to predict the future of its business, so they hire researchers who have produced really thorough studies about the real dangers of climate change. Not that ExxonMobil is too happy about that stuff leaking.
The reporting has alleged the company misled the public about what its own scientists found about the risks of climate change and greenhouse gases.
Exxon knew carbon dioxide was increasing in the atmosphere, that combustion of fossil fuels is driving it, and that this posed a threat to Exxon.
The scientific evidence remains inconclusive as to whether human activities affect the global climate. So there's simply no reason to take drastic action now.
It is very similar to what the tobacco industry was convicted of and why they paid a huge settlement. They had evidence within the industry to say that their product was causing serious health problems. And what did they do? They went public, as you know, and said, oh no, I'm Dr. Jones, I'm smoking cigarettes, it's great for you. They lied. That's the crime here.
A big part of the reason why we have failed to address this crisis, when we have addressed other crises in the past, whether it's a hole in the ozone layer or public health crises, is because this one hit us at the worst possible moment, at the end of the 1980s, at the moment of maximal free market triumphalism, when our governments embraced the idea that there was something wrong with regulating corporations and taxing polluters and intervening in the market.
The fossil fuel industry lobbies for clauses in trade agreements that would let them sue town and city governments that want to switch their utilities to renewable energy sources like solar and wind, even though those technologies are just about cheaper per kilowatt hour than coal or nuclear energy or natural gas. They hire literal henchmen to beat up protesters, to turn the hose on indigenous grandmothers in the middle of winter, like they did in Standing Rock.
We have water cannons that are aimed towards our water protectors, so we're having severe cases of hypothermia. They are aiming for people's hands. I took one patient that had the skin shot off of his finger, so he was down to the bone. They're also aiming for the heads.
We need medical transport!
Shot directly in the head with a rubber bullet. Cheers, feels great. That genetics behind.
We don't have any superheroes coming to save us, but we sure have some supervillains. It's pretty bleak. But hear me out. So apparently in the world of the X-Men movies, kids read X-Men comics. So there's a scene where all these mutant refugee kids think that they'll be safe if they can get to some coordinates that they found in an X-Men comic. Logan is dismissive. He says,
maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this.
But these kids get to those coordinates, and they build their own safe house. See, because superheroes aren't real, but the values in those stories are real if we make them real. There's no mutant superhero team on the way, but we can team up. We control our money. We could organize boycotts to challenge the growth at any costs economic paradigm. We could get our utilities and transportation off of fossil fuels. We control our labor. We can organize strikes to force companies to act in our interests. We control our bodies. We can organize protests. We can literally stand in the way of fossil fuel extraction, just like the heroes of Standing Rock. And we control our votes. We can get measures on ballots. We can elect each other to office. And then we can control government spending. Right now, the US military is one of the main largest consumers of fossil fuels on the planet. It's really politically tricky to challenge how much we spend on the military because they're also the #1 employer in the United States. That's not even counting all the private contractors and manufacturers. So it's basically a big bipartisan jobs program. Anybody who's been in the military can tell you that there is a mind-boggling amount of waste. It goes way beyond just like making missiles we don't need, but that's a topic for another video. Right now, what I want to suggest is that we divert 1/3 of our military resources, 1/3 of our able-bodied soldiers, 1/3 of our experts in logistics and technology, 1/3 of all that money towards building a renewable energy future.
Today we received the largest military budget in history.
Right now, our military spends more money than every other military in the world combined. I'm not kidding. And we could cut 1/3 and still outspend every other country's military by a lot, but we would also have a grid that works. We could run that grid on solar and wind energy. You know, people often defend our military bloat by saying that a lot of that technology trickles over. Well, prove it. Build a better battery than Tesla. Build reliable, comfortable public transit. Let's give our troops something to be proud of. We've been at war for the past 17 years. Is the world any safer? And these are wars that we probably wouldn't have been in if not for the greed of the oil and weapons industries. Our military consumes so much oil just to protect the global flow of oil. America makes so many weapons just to maintain the sales of weapons.
The 20-foot-long Tomahawks are manufactured by the Raytheon Company.
We're a supplier to the United States military and allied forces in over 40 countries, and we're over a $5 billion business.
A plane from the US-backed Saudi-led coalition struck a bus carrying them. Dozens died. This number here denotes Lockheed Martin, one of the top US defense contractors.
There's a lot of money in war.
We must guard against the military-industrial complex.
It's like any organism or meme or virus, it perpetuates itself just to perpetuate itself. We can tame it. We can cure it. We can beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. If I could recommend one writer on this subject, it would be Naomi Klein. She wrote This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate. This book actually gave me hope that we stand a chance, just because this is such a stark crisis. Maybe we can unite enough people to take on the greedy parasites of the pollution business. The fossil fuel industry wouldn't spend so much money on propaganda and paying off politicians if they weren't really afraid of us. Every day I see the right wing trying to define more and more people as the undeserving other, right? Because they know what's coming. And they're trying to pull up the drawbridge behind themselves. Well, I say no. A couple of hours a month spread among a couple million people really could be the thing that makes the difference. Don't you want to be one of those people? I'm going to link to a few organizations that I think are already doing really good work in the description. And I'm also going to include some of my favorite Storm comics. Thanks so much for watching. If you want more comics in context, subscribe to Fansplaining.